Hello, fancy seeing you there. So, I've just started a new book today on this very hot summer's day in early July by a writer who I have discovered through a friend of mine called Susie Hannah. I've made many films with Susie Hannah, and she introduced me to this writer, Alice Thomas Ellis. She's partly Welsh. She had a childhood in Wales. This book, The Other Side of the Fire, is my second go at Alice Thomas Ellis recently. And the opening of this book is one of the most, well, let me read it to you and you can decide. On the last day of summer, Mrs. Bohannon fell in love. The poplars, fallaciously pathetic, looked horrified, their branches rising on the wind like startled hair. And a pilgrim cloud wept a few chill tears. It began in a garden, as these things will, and she fell in love with her husband's son. Bloody hell! It happened like this. Now, how's that for an opening? I wonder if I should read it again. On the last day of summer, Mrs. Bohannon fell in love. The poplars, fallaciously pathetic, looked horrified, their branches rising on the wind like startled hair. And a pilgrim cloud wept a few chill tears. It began in the garden, as these things will, and she fell in love with her husband's son. Bloody hell! It happened like this. ... And then we go into the story. And I've just set that tiny little paragraph, all of 6 lines, I think, 7.5 lines. I've set that as a prompt for my writing student, Sabrina. And what I've told her to consider is the subject of unsuitable love. Unsuitable love! As my teacher, Mrs. Rutherford, would have said, suitable was one of her most favourite words. Unsuitable love. She taught me how to speak poetry, Mrs. Rutherford, and she features in my book, Girl with Dove. Unsuitable love. Bloody hell, says the voice of the narrator. It began in the garden, as these things will, and she fell in love with her husband's son. Now, what's so surprising about this opening is the fact that the poplars get the second sentence. The poplars are the melodramatic scenery. The poplar trees, fallaciously pathetic, look horrified at this news of Mrs. Bohannon falling in love, and their branches rise on the wind like startled hair. And then a pilgrim cloud weeps a few chill tears. So there's a lovely sense of melodramatic scenery. And I've asked Sabrina, let me just switch my kettle off. I've asked Sabrina if she will come up with a subject not like herself, so perhaps a male subject, who falls in love with an unsuitable other self or thing. It can be a thing, it can be a pet, it can be an animal. But what I would like her to try and play around with is the scenery itself, the place where this happens. And I've asked her to consider not only an unsuitable love affair, but an unsuitable place for a love affair. Somewhere awkward, ungainly, unromantic, squashed, compressed, depressed even. Somewhere where love, you wouldn't expect it to flourish. I think that's quite a good start for a story, because love, of course, flourishes in the most unsuitable of places, with the most unsuitable of pairings. And I love that line about the poplar trees. It makes me laugh. It's a summary of the melodramatic mode. The poplars, fallaciously pathetic, looking horrified, their branches rising on the wind like startled hair. So Sabrina In fact, the student I refer to is with me. She's here. She's among us. So I'm just going to carry on talking about that writing prompt. I've given her a second writing prompt based on Mrs. Bohannon falling in love the last day of the summer. She has to come up with her own unsuitable love, but I want her to consider her character in their unsuitable location, the unromantic space where the unsuitable love occurs, and I want her to take one natural item or one natural subject. Here it's the fallaciously pathetic poplars, or the pilgrim cloud which goes overhead in the sky. I want Sabrina to take her character and to build a relationship with one natural subject, so a tree or a pond or a puddle or a set of ferns or nettles or ivy or tree stump, whatever it might be, so that she can bring her character closer to the environment in which they find themselves. I think she was suggesting a beach location and a beach hut or a beach locker, something like this. A small narrow space is what I imagine. But I then would like to think about that character. I'd like her to think about that character, building a relationship with the context, the scenery around, so that we can see the character moving through the space, building a relationship with that place. To have the character circle the space and come back to that space, because when you're building a relationship with character, you need to watch them walk around the place that you've put them in. They need to be circling that space. Perhaps talking out loud, as you sometimes do when you're alone, or perhaps talking within their own mind, so that you're practicing internal dialogue, whilst they're also being seen by us, the reader, through the narrative voice. So we're getting closer to our character in that regard. We're letting them circle the space, building up a relationship with that place, perhaps with these unsuitable love thoughts, perhaps planning the next move, the next meeting, the next sighting of the beloved.